All right. Do small frequent meals increase metabolism and improve fat loss? I'm sure many of you have heard this one before. You have to eat 6 meals a day if you want to lose body fat and build muscles. If you go a few hours without eating, that will slow down your metabolism and stop you from losing body fat. It's almost like a rule in the bodybuilding world. If you want to get in shape, you have to eat 6 meals. There's no other way. It's one of the longest standing claims. There are whole books written around the very idea of eating more frequently or eating more meals to lose body fat. So what we are going to do in this video, we are going to look into the claim and see if there are any merits to it. We are going to look into the scientific literature and see if there are any evidence to back up this claim. Right, so every time we eat, we see a increase in metabolic rate due to thermic effect of food. Thermic effect or dietary induced thermogenesis, they both refer to the same thing. So assume your metabolic rate is a steady flat line, and every time you eat, it goes up, right? And you eat again, it goes up. So you see small increases or small bumps in your metabolic rate every time you eat due to thermic effect of food, right? So since there's an increase in metabolic rate every time you eat, if you eat more often or if you eat more times, you will see these increases more times, right? So therefore, your energy expenditure should be higher, therefore you should be able to lose more body fat. So that's where this claim and where this whole thing comes from. Right, so I'm gonna put a pin on that and leave there for a minute. Thermic effect of food. So different macronutrients has different thermic effect. Protein has the highest thermic effect. Protein has about 20 to 30% thermic effect. What that means in simple terms, if you consume 100 calories purely from protein, 20 to 30% of it, which is 20 to 30 calories, will be used towards digesting and absorbing that meal, right? So carbohydrate has about 5 to 6% thermic effect. Dietary fat has the lowest, about 2 to 3%, except for maybe MCT. MCT oil has slightly higher thermic effect, right? We don't usually eat just one macronutrient alone. We don't just, so some may, depending on their diet, but in regular people, they don't use just one macronutrient alone. They eat mixed meal. Thermic effect of a mixed meal is about 10%. Again, this could be vary from the macronutrient and food composition. For example, say one meal, so both meals are 300 calories, and this meal has more protein compared to this meal, and this one has more whole food compared to this one. So this meal has a high thermic effect compared to this one, even though the calories are exactly the same. I think that's fairly straightforward, right? So the thermic effect is not a fixed number. It's a percentage or a proportion, right? That's very important to understand going forward. If you want to find out if higher meal frequency or eating more meals is better than eating the same calories with lower meals, again, we have to compare the same amount of calories with same food and macronutrient composition, right? So for example, let's say person on the left, let's say both of them are eating 2,400 calories with identical macronutrient and food composition, right? So the person on the left eat 2,400 calories, all calories in one meal. Maybe he's following intermittent fasting. So remember I said thermic effect of food is a percentage, and it's about 10% in mixed meals. So 10% of 2,400 calories. So thermic effect of this meal is 240 calories. And person on the right also eat 2,400 calories, but he eat that in 6 smaller meals. So since the thermic effect of food is a percentage, So he will consume 400 calories each meal. 10% of 400 calories is 10% of 400 calories is 40 calories. So 40 into 6, 240 calories. You see how that equal within 24 hours. So with the person on the left, he consumed a huge meal, so you see this huge bump. And person on the right, you will see the small bumps, but again, it comes at the end of the day. They comes down to the overall calorie consumption within 24-hour period. Right. So what if you eat more calories to increase your metabolic rate, right? It is out there. There are a lot of people say you have eat more to increase your metabolic rate. So I'll show you what happens if you eat more calories for the sake of increasing metabolic rate. Right? Let's say person on the right eat 500 calories per meal instead of 400. So each meal has gone up in 100 calories. Now 10% of 500 comes to 50 calories. 50 into 6. So 50 into 6, 300 calories. So the thermic effect of thermic effect of total thermic effect of for the day is 300 calories. But you also, so now you increase thermic effect in 60 calories, 10 calories per meal. But you consumed 600 extra calories just to do that. It's like buying a $600 handbag. I don't know why I chose handbag, but anyway, it's like buying a $600 handbag when it's 10% off just to save $60. Yeah, it's $60 cheaper, but you are spending $540. So exactly the same thing here. You are consuming 540 extra calories just for the sake of increasing your metabolic rate very slightly, right? So if you're trying to lose fat, not a good idea. All right, fat balance and energy balance across the day. So fat storage and fat oxidation happens 24 hours. It happens continuously throughout the day. In some areas, we store fat in some areas and we burn fat in some areas. It's exactly the same with muscle building and muscle protein breakdown as well. In some areas, we building muscle tissues. In some areas, we break down muscle tissues. This happens 24 hours a day. So every time we eat, we store body fat. Even if you are in a total energy deficit, every time you eat, you store some body fat. If you eat a big meal, you store more body fat. If you eat a small meal, you will store less body fat. But if you are in a total deficit, again, it's given your meals and your calories will be smaller because you are, by definition, you are in an energy deficit. It has to be smaller, right? Compared to your energy expenditure. So I don't know if you can see the numbers, but it doesn't matter if you can. They're not important. So if the blue areas, that's your meals, and red areas, that's where you burn fat. So if the blue areas equals red areas, you are in a energy maintenance. So there is no fat storage or fat burn. So that still you store body fat when you eat, and you are burning body fat when you are in post-absorptive state. But across 24 hours, both total of blue areas and total of red areas equal, then no body fat. So no. At the end of the day, there is no difference in net fat balance. Right. What if the blue areas are bigger? So if you are eating more calories than you spend, then you end up in a positive net energy balance. So that if you have strength training, obviously you will use some of those calories to build muscle tissues, and the rest gets stored as body fat. And let's say you started strength training and introduce cardio, so you increase your energy expenditure. Now the red areas are bigger than blue areas. Now you end up in a negative net energy balance, right? So you burn fat here. So if you're wondering this, what's this, the big red area in the at the end of the graph, that's the fat you burn when you're when you're sleeping, right? Right. So important thing to understand here. Every time, regardless you are in the energy surplus or energy deficit, when you eat, you store body fat. When you are in an overall energy deficit, you spend more energy or you burn more calories than the calories you consume or the energy you consume. When you are in a net surplus, you consume more calories than you spend, right? Okay, now let's look at how that happens with different meal frequencies. All right, the first one, 3 meals. So you will see, again, we're taking the same number because it's just easier to compare. 2,400 calories for the day. So you will consume 3 meals, 800 calories per meal, right? So that's with 3 meals. Sorry. All right, 4 meals. So with 3 meals, you consume 800 calories per meal. With 4 meals, you consume 600 calories per meal, right? Right. With 3 meals, you see bigger bumps compared to 4 meals. The 4 meals has smaller bumps, right? So when you consume, so with 4 meals, you see the metabolic rate goes up more frequently, but you are staying in post-absorptive or fat oxidation state for less longer as well compared to 3 meals. Hope that makes sense and fairly straightforward. What about with 6 meals? The same thing. Again, the time period you stay in fat oxidation state is smaller compared to 3 meals. What if you are consuming just 1 meal of time restricted eating, even 1 or 2 meals? You see this huge bump. Then the rest of the day, you are not eating anything, and you are in a fat oxidation state for a longer period. So every way you look at it, there are way more smarter people than me looked at this in every possible angle, and it always comes down to overall energy balance. All right, does skipping a meal slow down your metabolism? So where does this come from? This comes from, again, misunderstanding studies. So it's not misunderstandings, it's misinterpreting studies. It comes from animal research. So mice, they live like 2 years. Yeah, they live like 2 years, and they have relatively low body fat compared to humans. So everything happens faster for them. When scientists stop feeding, or when they make mice skip a meal, they notice their metabolic rate start to slow down. But that doesn't happen with human. In human research, we see metabolic rate does not even start to slow down with even complete starvation for 3-4 days, right? So complete starvation is not eating anything, and we don't see metabolic rate start to slow down till 3-4 days. With animal research, very rarely convert exactly the same way to human. It's a very lower tier in the importance of evidence hierarchies. I'm not going to talk about it now because I'm planning to do a whole segment or a video in the future about research methods and designing research, how to interpret how media and people interpret them to their advantage, stuff like that. So I'm just going to leave it there. So animal research, yeah, they very rarely convert exactly the same way to human. All right. Okay, so meal frequency studies. Okay, okay, I'm gonna go meal by I'm gonna go research. I'm gonna go one by one, then I'll say what I was going to say. All right. First one, 2 versus 6 meals. Same total macronutrient composition. Fantastic. That's what we need to do. Remember, I mentioned. So you need to. You don't want to have many variables. You just need one. Except the meal frequency, everything else has to be exactly the same between two groups to make sure, or if you want to establish the causation of meal frequency. Right. Whole body calorimeter, so that's how they measure the energy expenditure. Two meals resulted in 2 large spikes in energy expenditure compared to 6 smaller spikes. Remember, when we compared 3 meals versus 6 meals, this is 2 versus 6, but again, the same concept. When you eat less meals, or less frequent meals, you will consume bigger meals. So yeah, you will see large spikes in energy expenditure, but total overall energy expenditure was the same in both groups over 24-hour period. 6 versus 4 versus 2 meals. Lower meal frequency had higher energy expenditure after meals. No significant difference in overall energy expenditure between 3 groups. Same results. 3 versus 2 meals. No significant difference in overall energy expenditure, macronutrient oxidation or thermic effect of food. No significant difference in 24-hour total energy expenditure, TIT, and sleeping metabolic rate. 2 versus 7 meals, no significant difference in total energy expenditure and metabolic rate. Next one, 6 versus 2. 12 well-trained boxes, no significant difference in energy expenditure. 14 versus 2, so this is a really high frequency. They feed every hour. Higher meal frequency did not lead to higher fat oxidation as hypothesized. The next one, body weight, body composition, and lipid profiling are not affected by the number of meals when weight loss diets are prepared with adequate energy restriction and sufficient balanced nutrition. Right, so there are total 8 studies to date that looked at meal frequency. Remember, I said when we designed the study to find out if the high meal frequency is better. So except the meal frequency, everything else has to be identical. So not every study had that. So this total, so the total 8 studies, these 8 studies had everything controlled except for the meal frequency. So those are the 8 studies relevant to us when we want to find this, if this is true or not, right? So all 8 studies unanimously disprove the concept of eating more meals or more frequently to increase metabolic rate. Right, take home point. So if you forget everything I just said, as long as you remember this, or you go you take away these points, you are fine. Eating small frequent meals have a metabolic advantage for fat loss and health, and it is an age-old idea, came from misunderstanding early research. This is another myth that should have died a long time ago, but still lives, and trainers, nutritionists still repeat this and recommend to people. Every calorie and macronutrient matched study to date unanimously disprove the concept. This doesn't mean meal frequency doesn't matter. This means eating smaller frequent meals don't increase metabolic rate or metabolism and improve fat loss. Okay, so this does not mean meal frequency does not matter. Meal frequency does matter, but eating more meals does not increase your metabolic rate or has an advantage on fat loss. Meal frequency does matter. We will talk about it when we talk about muscle building and body composition in the future. So if we keep going off topic and start talking about these videos keep getting longer than necessary, so we'll talk about them in the future. Awesome. I will see you guys in another video.